Now that we have a grasp on the core concepts around virtual machines and templates, we can move on to vApps. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that vApps are a type of virtual appliance. They're not. They are a logical grouping of virtual machines that all come together to support a single application. For example, the database servers, the application servers, and the web front-end servers. And you can group them together and manage them as a single object. So let's take a look at how that works. We're just going to use our Windows 10 VMs there in this case. So let's create a new vApp. So we want to create a new vApp. Obviously, we can also clone an existing vApp if we wish, which will clone all of the virtual machines within it. Let's call this my app. I'll put it into our data center. And then we go on to resource allocation. Now, a vApp is also a type of a resource pool. Now, you'll remember from resource pools that resource pools allow us to control the allocation of resources across the cluster. And a vApp is a special type of resource pool specifically for grouping together VMs that work as part of a particular application. So we can set our resource allocation limits there. You'll note at this point as well that we haven't actually been asked or selected where we are going to deploy this vApp. Is it on a particular host, a cluster, etc.? At this level, it doesn't actually matter. It's in our data center unit, but the location of the resources within it are independent of the vApp. The vApp is just a management concept. It doesn't run on any particular cluster or host as such. I'm going to leave the resources as they are at this point. And there we have a vApp. I'm now going to drag my two Windows 10 VMs into that vApp. My vCentre by mistake. There we go. So that's our new vApp deployed. We right click on our vApp and take a look at the settings. We have again our resource limits that we set when we created the virtual machine. We can specify the start order. Now, this is one of the real benefits of using vApps. If you imagine, like when we talked about HA, it's quite common that you will want to start the database servers first, and then the application servers, and then the web tier. Now, obviously, you can do that within your high availability settings, but that only helps you in the event of the server being restarted by HA due to a hardware failure. But what about when you want to do a shutdown of the VMs? You would have to manually shut them down in order. And if this is quite a large application, say you've got 4 database tiers, 3 app tiers, and 2 web front ends, it's quite a few VMs to have to manipulate on that level. So this allows us to set the order. So by default, each VM has been put into its own group, but we can actually put both VMs into group 1 if we wish, and they'll both be started at the same time, or we can leave it in default. In group 1, we can create a new group, group 3. So you can see there the actions that we are taking. The shutdown, we can either just power off, in which case we just pull the plug. We can do a guest shutdown. That's probably going to be what you want to do. So I'm going to set group 2 and group 1. Power on delay 120 seconds. Shutdown delay 120 seconds. And the same on the other. And we'll see what that actually does when we come to restart them in a moment. Additionally, we can set continue when VMware tools are ready. So instead of waiting a fixed amount of time, we just wait until the VMware tools have started, therefore indicating that the operating system is ready. Now with the vApp, you can also configure the IP allocations for that vApp through the vApp settings. So we'll set that to IPv4 and we can set it to DHCP. But when we do, we get this message. We need to go and configure the network protocol profile configuration. We get the same thing if we select OVF environment. We can say static manual, which means it'll just use whatever configured in the virtual machine, or we can use an IP pool. But again, that needs an IP pool to be configured on the network protocol profile configuration. So let's go and take a look at that. So we go to Datastore to configure and network protocol profiles. We say add. I'm going to call this main network. We select the networks that are in scope for this network protocol profile. And then we are asked for a set of IP addresses. So 192.168.42.0, and it wants the subnet. The gateway on that network is that. Is DHCP present? Yes, it is on that network. The DNS servers. And do we want to configure an IP pool as we saw on the other page? So I'm going to set one. So I want 192.168.42.130. And we put a hash and the number of IP addresses we want to include in this pool. And if we click view range, that is the IP addresses that we are going to have available in that pool. IPv6 I'm not going to configure for this particular pool, but you can do if you wish. DNS domain if appropriate, so this is your DNS suffix if you have a internal domain, or you can leave that blank. Host prefix, so when it creates host names for virtual machines from this network protocol profile, if you do ask it to do so, you can configure that there. So you might want to say Datacenter 1 VM, and then it'll put that in front of any host names it creates for you. DNS search path is which domains are we going to search for. If someone just puts in a server name on its own, which DNS domains are we going to search? And then if there is a web proxy on that network, what is the details for that? I'll say finish. And now in our vApp, and go to edit settings, IP allocation, and I'm going to set OVF environment and static IP pool or transient IP pool. So static, we're going to take an IP address from the pool and we're going to use it, and that VM is going to be permanently allocated that IP. Transient means it's going to get an IP address from that pool, and when the virtual machine is no longer using it, it will be returned to the pool for another virtual machine to use. Then on the details tab, this is just a little bit of metadata for documenting things within the vSphere client. So we'll say OK, and that's now updated the app configuration. So let's now see what happens when we shut down this vApp. Say yes. So we can see we've got this stop vApp task running, and it is starting by shutting down one of the virtual machines. And you'll remember in the start order, Windows 10-3 is the last one in the list. So it's the last one that it starts, but it's the first one that it shuts down. So for shutdown, it goes back up through the list. When it starts up, it will do them in order. So the first one shut down fairly quickly, and we'll see the other one go off in just a few moments as well. And there we go, the whole vApp shut down. So we'll now power it back on, and we'll see Windows 10-2 is the first to start, and it will wait until the VMware tools check in with the host before it moves on to the other virtual machine. This is, of course, what we set in the start order. I have accelerated this section just to shorten the length of the clip, but I want you to see the process that it actually goes through. As we see, the other virtual machine has now started, and so we can now manage that application as a single object. It is really handy for doing maintenance on the virtual machine when we need to shut down all of those VMs and restart them as part of any planned maintenance efforts. And finally, to remove a vApp, we first need to remove or move the virtual machines out of the vApp. So do just that. And then we can right click. As the vApp is empty, we can do either remove from inventory and delete from disk. It makes no difference. If there were VMs inside the vApp which were powered off, if we did delete from disk, it would delete the VMs as well from the disk. However, as we have no VMs in the vApp at the moment, it makes no odds. And that's it for vApps. Thanks for watching. Coming up, we turn our attention back to our vSphere hosts, specifically the options we have for managing and maintaining them now that they are operational.